Okay, so we can start. And in case we can just wrap up or going back to some thematic. Okay, thank you very much to be here for attending this workshop. As in the morning, you could see the platform is the same, so we will have the chat, and we will use the chat also for if you want to add comments or questions, and if you don't want to, or you are just waiting your turn to talk. So we will record all these. We will record this workshop, and we will also record the chat and the questions. So in case we miss something, we will definitely come back to you after the workshop. So again, thank you for being here after lunch. So this is workshop of MPA Europe workshop, the project MPA Europe, the marine protected areas in Europe, and is a regional stakeholder workshop, in this case focused on in the Baltic Sea, and done with together with the Protect Baltic project. Just wait. Okay, works perfectly. Why this workshop? Because we want to take home message, and we hope that this take home message will be reciprocal. So from you and from and for us too. So what we would like to discuss and bring with us after the workshop is two main things. One is a different question about how we can see the MPA Europe result, how they can be used for MSP or for the maritime special planning or marine special planning, and for the MPA, so the marine protected area. So in different cases. So then these are the question that we are wondering. And the second question, the second topic is co-identify with you a specific case study. So this is the reason why we decided to run this workshop. So a brief outline of the agenda for today. We will present MPA Europe project has a goal in his goal and result to date. So the latest result we can show you, and then we will have a quick Q&A session specific on the presentation. I mean, if there is some technical question or scientific specific question on that presentation, and then we will open the discussion. The discussion exactly on the topic that on the take-home message that I was saying to you before. And then we will have definitely the final wrap-up, and we shared, also I will give you an idea of the product that we'll have after this workshop. Then we have a quick group photo time. So smile, everyone. And one thing I want to say to you, we will not use any beyond the chat. We will not use Slido or Mural. So we will just talk among us, old-fashioned. We will just talk among us, and then use the chat in case we need it. And as I said before, everything will be recorded, so we will come back to you for sure in the future to reply your questions. So let's start, so then we can talk together. So one thing, during the open discussion or the Q&A session, when there is a question that you intervene, please just quickly introduce yourself and the institution, especially if we cannot read the entire name in your tag. Okay. Doesn't work anymore. Okay. Before talk the MPA Europe, I want to just introduce the fact that we are a team. A big team is working under this project. Some of us are running the workshop in person. So Marco Stello, Belinda, Thanos are running in parallel in this moment in a sync in the workshop, while Silas and Anna that are there, they are helping me here in the workshop. So we will practically cover your question every problem we can find during this hour. So MPA Europe in goals and results. So the background, why we run this project, because previous work, and that is previous investigation, demonstrated that there are good effects on MPAs, both for fisheries and tourism. And there are not actually scientific evidence that MPA cause loss to any fishery or anywhere. And this is a recent publication done by Costello, recently actually published in 2024, so just a few weeks ago, and where you can see actually the benefit of MPAs for either fisheries than tourism. So with this idea we developed the MPA Europe project, and the main goal is to mapping the optimal location for marine protected area at the European seas, so at the European scale, but also not only for protection, but also to support the science-based maritime spatial planning. Our targets are two main targets, are biodiversity, so all organisms that are included in the marine realm, and the blue carbon. These are our two main targets. The blue carbon, at least the classical blue carbon habitats have been defined as seagrass, tidal, and marsh and mangroves. In the case of Europe, we will focus most on salt marsh and seagrass habitat too, as a biogenic habitat important for carbon. The components of the project are 7, spanning from environmental data to biological information like species habitat, the carbon sequestration, and the storage. And then we also use connectivity in terms of oceanographic connectivity, and we introduce the parameter of climate velocity to also indicate the potential change in future of the species range or the habitat range distribution, and then automatically the consequence of a potential MPA. Then we will design, with the prioritization analysis, we will design the MPA network covering both target 10% and 30% of the European seas. And as you are here, you already know, we also have an important component of the stakeholder engagement, because we want to actually have a win-win approach with you directly. Obviously, there is also a component of the last component is dissemination and communication. The project prioritization analysis is based on the systematic conservation planning approach. So we will use standardized data layers on environmental data, biological data as a biospecies, and benthic habitat. And we will also use the carbon storage layer that we will produce. We will use the software zonation to apply the systematic conservation planning approach in order, as I say, to prioritize areas to protect either biodiversity and blue carbon. So from our standard study area, that is the European seas, the pan-European seas, we should reach at the end of the project a map, as I show here, an hypothetical example of a map of prioritized area where we can actually see the hotspots of biodiversity and blue carbon. So the high priority is protection. Even though our study areas of MPA Europe is pan-European study area, we will also run other 3 spatial analysis at the regional scale, at the EZ scale, so the exclusive economic zone, and the territorial water. In this case, we will use the 12 nautical miles. This because we want to see our results be applied directly to the region or to the country, either EZ or 20 nautical miles, depends of their target. So we want to actually provide as much as we can. Based on previous work, has been demonstrated that 30% of the marine protected area include actually currently includes 70% of the biodiversity. This is what has been analyzed at a global level. So what we want to achieve, and we hope that at least 80% of representative biodiversity will be within the 30% of each sea area that we analyze. This is what we hope based on the updated data that we have on ecosystem, habitat, and species. So the main output of the project will be the first data-driven classification of the marine ecosystem, both in shallow and deep European seas, a map, updated map of the species richness based on different indicators, a potential geographical distribution of some important biogenic habitats and their definition under this project. Finally, the main goal, that is representing the main goal of the project, is the map of the optimal MPA network in Europe, based, as I say, both biodiversity and blue carbon, and finally the online European Marine Biodiversity Atlas. So this map can these maps can be then used by everyone. All products are and will be public available after the reporting period. Here I will give you a brief overview of the first year of results, because our project starts in last January 2023. So we already have 1 year of work and 1 year of results. Regarding the environmental data that are the basis of our work, we had an update version of this list of variables, either for current days and the future scenario. And this is very important especially when we will run potential change, climate change effect on the MPA. For the ecosystem classification, we actually already classified the ecosystem for sea surface, identify 5 clusters, and we also provide the precision about the assignation of these clusters. So you can see, for example, the pink area that are low. They are the low precision. These areas are either area of great environmental variability, because they are transition zone between cluster or transition zone, for example, in this area in the Mediterranean Sea, where they have a lot of input from big rivers. So the same approach we also use for the near seabed, where we found 3 clusters. And the precision assignation map, also the fuzzy map, also for this cluster. And finally, the new one is the 3D ecosystem classification, where the sea surface water was combined with the depth, the different depth. Our depth is from 0 up to 2,500 meter depth. We know that there are areas where there are bigger depth. Unfortunately, we couldn't use the layer from 2,500 up to 5,000 because of the resolution, but we are working on it. So what we found in this case, it was 8 different clusters that you could quickly see in this. But this is a really new deliverable that actually we delivered this morning. Regarding the species distribution, we update the OBIS dataset. Actually, Silas, that is here with us, is the main author of this. Because the work package 3 that is working on species distribution data is actually led by OBIS, UNESCO. currently work with 35,000 species and more than 67 million of records. So we actually have a lot of data, but we still try to update the data and use different additional sources for this data set. So we will continue to do it until June at least, and for our project, because then we will start the other analysis. But OBIS will keep doing this because it's the main goal of this platform. Regarding the species habitat distribution model, as I say, we are not just focused on the current distribution, but we want to see any potential change of the distribution of species and habitat in future. Even these slides is very scary, as I will try to explain very quickly an example. So the idea is to use around 15,000 of marine species, 15,000 because we can't use all of them because of the resolution or the accuracy of the data that has to match with the requirement from the model. So that's why we can't use all of them. We will use, as I say, OBIS and BioOracle. So OBIS for species and data, and BioOracle for our environmental data layers. And we also run this species and habitat distribution model under 5 climate scenario, the SSP 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, for 2 different periods, 2050 and 2100, because we actually want to see that. In future, this species distribution map will also done by only for species, not only for species, but also for biogenic habitats. And we will include conservation status of the species habitat in order to have the complete species range shift. So I will give you, after this scary slide, very technical, I will give you an idea of our results. Our result of the species distribution prediction, for example, you will see and you will have access to this data about in this case, we give an example of the ray species. So you will have the current distribution species and then the species distribution under the different climate scenarios. And this approach is also done for some biogenic habitat. So this is another delivery that we are done. So you will have your habitat, the biogenic habitats, specific biogenic habitats, the prediction about its distribution under the different scenarios, and for 2 periods, 2050 and 2100. What we could actually see from our preliminary data, because as I told you, if the species data set will be updated, also these will be updated too. So that's why I say I give you just an example, because we will keep updating these maps. So we're increasing in terms of number and quality. But I was saying to you that based on the general idea and general review of the result, we could actually see that more or less the species and then also some habitat will keep having occupy the same area. The big change will be in, for example, in the extreme. So we will have a reduction of the distribution in the south, maybe, and an extension in the northern. But this is something that we can actually say at the end after a deep analysis with all the data set that we have. But this is actually what the common pattern that we could find so far. Regarding the blue carbon data, so we launched last year a European call for our scientific colleagues. So we collect data set from more than 80 contributors, and that actually provides a lot of data all around Europe and for the entire for the different type of marine habitats. As in the case of the species, also the blue carbon dataset is still updating, because we still have contributors that will provide more data thanks to the current expedition that they are doing. So they want to keep updating their data set. And also because we will also use a different database on the blue carbon, like Pangaeas and the literature review. But just to give you an idea, we collect more than 33,000 entries. We cover the entire pan-European seas. So the entire study area, and we also get data from the high seas, so from the deep. This is the first spatial coverage of the first analysis on the spatial coverage of the OC carbon in percentage on the marine sediment. So you can see briefly, for example, data point where you have a low carbon or content, organic carbon content, like here in the Mediterranean Sea, or higher organic content person, like in the Baltic. That is look like to be a really hot spot for the organic content. And then as a last result just delivered today, we also check the organic carbon in the different sediment, different type of sediment. In this case, we used the UNIS classification, so we could actually see that the sedima, the medisat, as is the type of sediment that has a lot of organic carbon, exactly has also the Posidonia oceanica, so the seagrass beds in the Mediterranean Sea. As I say, these are just preliminary results, so we will go in deep in the future when everything the final data set will be ready. But meanwhile, we also try to model using the organic carbon. So try to understand which environmental predictor, can actually drive and describe the organic carbon content in marine sediment. So we will use different environmental data, and we try to understand which are the most important, and then try to work on it with the final data set. So the timeline of the project, as I say, we start on 2023, but then we will end the project on April 2026. We already ran the first year, and one of the most important outputs or products that our project is the International Conference on MPA and MSP. So a conference on marine protected area and maritime spatial planning that we will run in July 2025 in Buda in Norway, and all of you are invited to come and present your experience in both of these areas. Regarding MSP, just a very quick, really quick slides. The maritime or marine spatial planning in Europe, we know that is extremely useful because reduce the conflict and work and create synergy between activity and countries, also increase cross-border cooperation, but it's a national process. So we actually have a country that already adopt the MSP in Europe and other that are in the process of adoption. The MSPs enable a comprehensive dialogue with all stakeholders, and actually is extremely important for the sustainable blue economy. So it's a process that it's really complex and is included in the complex variety of European legislation that goes from maritime spatial planning, from a marine strategy framework directive to the actually natural restoration law recently adopted, and the zero pollution, or the biodiversity strategy included, obviously, the water framework directive, because we have also the coastal component that is extremely important. So in this framework, the stakeholder engagement process is very complicated and very complex, but it's necessary. And And it's not one-off exercise, but is a continuous exercise that go from one step to another and dealing with, as I say, with it under different legislation and framework. Sorry. Okay. In this complexity, in both in terms of work, dialogue, and scale, has been also seen in the recent work in science, where actually in the last 10 years we could see an increased number of scientific paper focus on MSP. For this reason, it's important also to see this component, because MSP actually is dealing with all the maritime activity that we have, with all variety of maritime activity that we have in Europe. In our project, we have this process that we call win-win process, because we want to have a direct conversation with you and actually decided with you how to use our data and create a case study. And this stakeholder engagement has launched since the first year, where there was an engagement with different stakeholders at different scale, at a different regional scale. And then now this year, we will involve you directly, exactly like this, and during a specific workshop online and in person. And then we will actually run during the conference a session, dedicated session on the MSP. That's why I invite you to come and talk about your experience. We have different stakeholder engaged, and we will have more because it's a continuing work and process. And we also create in our page different FAQ tab, so a page where you can find all the main questions that has been raised during this workshop. So you can go in and click on the question that you find, and then you will see our answer. So this is important. This is something that I show you because I want to actually demonstrate, give you an evidence that even though we are not going to answer because we don't have time to answer now, we will keep your question after, and we will come back to you. And then if we see that is not already done in our webpage, we will actually upload those. So we will actually use it because we are considering your point and your comment, and this for any type of discussion. That goes from the scope to the existing activity at the sea and the case study. So my presentation is finished, and I hope it was too long. Now the idea is to discuss with you about the key points. So the take-home message that I was mentioned before. So we would like to know if and see if where you would like to see our result be used for national, transboundary, or regional MSP, for strengthening existing MPAs, and for extending the network of existing MPAs in the region. And finally, would you like to co-identify with us a case study on any based on any type of result that you will find interesting or useful from our project? So my presentation is finished. Thank you. And I keep this slide just as a reminder for our key point, but if you have any specific question, please let me know and we will answer. Silas and Anna are here with me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I can't find a button for raising the hand, so I'll just talk.
This is the system.
Yeah. Thanks for the very nice presentation. It's a very good overview of the project, and it's very interesting. And I have two specific questions regarding. One is regarding the species that you're covering. You said in your species distribution modeling you have 35,000 species. And could you detail a bit which ecosystem components you're covering, and what kind of data these are? Are they just presence absence data, or what are you using?
You are lucky because we have Silas with us. So I will give exactly the floor to our colleague that actually worked, but yes, he will give you the answer. I just copied this, but let me know if I have to change. Okay.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Anna. So it's Friedrich, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So what we did is first we using information from both OBIS and GBIF that are the main biodiverse database that we have. We first try to identify all the species that are marine and occurring in our study area. That holds the approximately 29 something species. And from that, we obtained all data possible regarding occurrence for those species. And from that, we think that we will be able to model 15,000, more or less half of the amount of species we have. We are using only occurrence information, so only presence information, presence only models. So we are using methods that are better suited for this type of data. We know that this is a challenging type of model because, of course, the ideal scenario you have also absence data, what enables us to extract much more information and predict maps that are much more I would not say correct, but much more close to the reality, probably. But unfortunately, we don't have this data for several species. With even if within Europe, that's one of the most sample areas in the world. So we have to work with the data we have, and it's only present. So we are trying to use models and methods that are better suited for this type of data.
Yeah, of course. So data availability is always a big
Yes,
issue here.
yes, it's always a big problem.
And so, do you also cover mammals and seabirds and fish, or is it
Yes.
what's the dominance, or is it plankton or benthic organisms, or?
Yes, so we are covering all the groups. So we have mammals, we have seabirds. So seabirds are an important component. We have several seabird species. Of course, those are also quite challenging in modeling because they also have this interface with the terrestrial system. But we are considering all the species that are either considered marine in a certain aspect or brackish. We are also modeling some brackish species. Well, regarding dominance, of course, we have several. Plankton species and the phytoplankton or zooplankton. But at the same time, for those species, we usually don't have enough points or enough information to generate the models. So for sure, the group that will be able to produce more models are fishes, mollusks, and crustaceans. We have a lot of data for those. For algae, sea algae, we also have enough data for many groups, but not for all. For some groups are not well sampled, or what's also a problem is that sometimes the identification is not to the species level, so we go just to the genus level, and producing models for genus is not ideal.
No, I can imagine. And what's the spatial resolution of the maps that you produce, or the spatial resolution you're confident about?
Okay, so the spatial resolution we are working on is 5 kilometers. It's a very fine resolution, I would say. So we are using the bioRacle version 3. It's a new version of the bioRacle that's going to be published, I think, on the next few months, probably. It's organized by one of the contributors of the project, that's George Assis. Now, confident, this is a tricky question that you did. Of course, this will depend on the group. What we are trying to do is to be very transparent on the limitations of each model. So we are not relying only on the statistical validation of the models. We are also trying to find different ways of validating. For example, whenever possible, we are trying to uh, for example, see the thermal limits of the species and see if this if this is matching the maps produced by the SDMs, for example. For some selected species, we'll try to have a validation by experts. So we are trying to see how we can transmit to the user the possible limitations of the model. Because something that we have discussed is that a lot of people take the SDM results, SDM outputs as something that's 100% sure. Okay, so if I have a map, that's what will happen, or that's what I have today. But this is not completely sure. It's a model, and all models are very useful, but we need to know the limitations.
Yeah, most definitely. That was actually another thought, because I know for Germany we have pretty good modeled seabird maps, for example, or also mammal maps. If you were considering of using those for validation or so.
Yes, yes. So we will try three types of validation. That's in our framework. So first is the statistical one. That's all STM modeling frameworks have to do this. We are already doing. The second one is this validation to distribution maps that are already existent, or to a more physiological idea. So looking only for physiological limits, temperature or something like that. And the third one would be the expert validation. So we hope to try the three ones, but of course this will not be able. We will not be able to do this for all species, because for some we don't have any map available. We will do the first maps. So let's see.
Of course.
We are exactly in the process of going into those small details that we think are important, trying those new things.
Yeah, Eva. We cannot hear you.
Yes,
No.
you're muted.
No, now yes.
Yes.
No, now you can.
Okay. No, it was a fascinating presentation. I really enjoyed it. A lot of interesting work. In my institute, we are also working extensively with the EVE, with the EcoPath, EcoSim, and EcoSpace model for the Western Baltic. And I think that I would be very happy. I know my colleagues who are working on the topic would be very happy to exchange the ideas about, a kind of ensemble modeling in order to validate each other's findings also. And I think that a very interesting application, this whole idea about the climate refugia, how existing marine protected areas can also accommodate the future changes in, temperature, salinity in the Baltic. A very hot topic is also like oxygen, so on and so forth, or how the network can be extended in order to also, of MPAs, can also be extended in order to take into account, climate refugia areas where fish in the future or other species in the future can, refuge in order to deal with the bad environmental conditions, let's say, with the pressing environmental conditions. Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's why I was mentioned before that just keep in mind that this that we are presenting now is just what we have now, but we will update based on what has been discussed so far between thanks to the Frederick question. And for your observation, yes, that's why we want to include connectivity for the network, for actually have a network, a real net of MPA, and climate velocity, because we want to see the climate change. Because we know that the target is in 2030, the first step, but then has to continue. So we have to be sure that what we design today will be actually good for the next. And this, when we say we, is like us, all of us, not MPA Europe, but all of us, even those that are working specific on MSP. So yeah. Any other comment or question?
Yes, I also have a question. Christina Weidemann from Baltic Environmental Forum. I have a question about, so you got about spatial resolution and now about temporal resolution, because in marine waters in Baltics, people also feel seasons, but also our ecosystem is very dynamic seasonally because temperatures are changing. How this component is reflected in a system, because if you say it should be used for spatial planning, so for spatial planners it's also very important to see this temporal dimension.
Yeah,
and maybe one more comment with regard to spatial resolution, this 5 kilometers grid. I would think it's a little bit too coarse for decision making on a national level. Due to the fact, particularly if we need to designate this 10% strict protected areas, and then 5 kilometers actually is pretty big space already, and quite also with high variability of the space and different values in this 5 kilometers long.
Yes.
Yeah, but first about that.
Go.
Yeah. So yes, sorry, I am not being able to see the names here. Christina, right? Christina, okay. Yes, Christina. So first answering the about the resolution, I agree with you that ideally you need finer resolutions for decision making, but for the scale we are working on the types of models that we are producing, anything finer than 5 kilometers is already quite fine, but anything finer than that would be a little bit misleading, because when you go to very fine resolutions, you have other aspects that are influencing the distribution of the species that we hardly can capture in this type of models. Using the type of data we are working on at this moment. That's why I think it was one or maybe last year we had a talk with the people that's working with models within the Protect Baltic project, and they are collecting a lot of data, and they will be able, for example, to do a presence absence models for several species, and then in this case they will be able to make finer maps, and that's very interesting because you have the regional maps that will be in a finer resolution, and then you have our maps that will be covering like a big area that's a little bit more coarse. But if both models are converging in more or less the areas where the species can occur, then this is valuable information, because what those models show is just the potential distribution. So of course the species may not be able to inhabit all those areas. And about the temporal resolution, that's another thing. Our model it's based on these big temporal scales, but ideally and this is especially if you are dealing for short or for the next 10 or 20 years, those models that incorporate the seasonal variations, they are very, very interesting. This is not exactly the objective of our project, so it would be a little bit different, but depending on what you are going to do for Protected Baltic and on those projects, then those are really interesting, because if you incorporate the seasonality, you can extract a lot of different information that we will not be able to get with our models, unfortunately. But it's just one thing that the big problem with the seasonal models is that they are very data anger. So you need a lot of data to be able to run them, and unfortunately we don't have.
Yeah, just add to Sila's replies. This is the reason why we are running our project, of course, but we also try to go behind our scope and our products, and we want to, as much as we can and is possible during this short period of time, try to collaborate, like for example with Protect Batting. We already engaged with them, and this is one of our projects together, combined project. But we also decided to plan this kind of exercise because, as Silas explained, because actually Baltic Sea, I think, is one of the regional sea together with the north is close the north that has a very good resolution, because if you go to the Black Sea or the Mediterranean Sea, we can't have that very fine resolution. So we want actually to see how good is this course map and or accurate based on, for example, compared to the other. But yes, you are definitely right. I mean, we are the data is driving our process.
Might be also one question, since this is a stakeholder workshop. Then when I was listening, of course, you are making it's a pan-Europe and even really big, impressive scale on which you are working. That in our Baltics stakeholder group, we are using slightly different terminology. Also with regard to habitat classification and ecosystem classification. So it might be need to, if it should be, how to say, really used in practice later, then maybe we need to look for some terminology, especially like in this biogenic habitat terminology. That's also something new for stakeholders, and we are used to HELCOM classification of habitats and species. So there could be some discussion on that topic also, might be through these case studies which you are going to implement. That might be way somehow to get from big European scale to might be regional sea basin scale.
Yeah, one thing we could also do, first of all, the biogenic habitat is exactly, you touched a very critical term, because depends of the classification or depends of the scientific community that you are talking with or classification that you are using, you actually can find different, quite similar definition, but not the same definition, and then the list of habitat within could be different. That's why we decided to actually run a meeting and a discussion specific on that. And that, thanks to your comment, I just came up with the idea that something that we could also do is create a sort of crosswalking table. So where the different classification that are used in Europe, we can actually try to reach the same. So people, for example, as you say, in the Baltic Sea, use that classification. With that table, can see what is what is exactly the terminology that we are using, so they can actually see the corresponding terms. But yes, you are right. We actually had this problem when we tried to run these few deliverables, analysis to deliver this product. We actually had a big discussion about biogenic habitat, and it's still open. But yes, thank you for the idea of this noted down. Any other comments, discussion, or I can also go direct. Yeah.
Sorry, can I intervene now?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. I also couldn't find the raise hand option. So my name is Margarita Stancheva. I represent Center for Coastal Marine Studies in Bulgaria, and we are partners in the MSP ProBio project, which is focused exactly on improved alignment of marine protected areas in maritime spatial planning. We actually tried together with the MPA Europe to perform a lot of synergies also collaborating in sharing our results and in stakeholder engagements, etc. So I don't have a question, but I have a comment and something to share from our MSP4Bio results that I'm confident might be interesting for also for MPA Europe and other attendees to the workshop. So we have in our work package 2 for data analysis, data gaps, we have produced MSP4Bio data compilation app, which is now available on our website. And it actually collects a lot of good quality ecological, environmental, but also socioeconomic data, which we know are very important for maritime spatial planning, but also for marine protected areas. So if you are interested, I can share via the chat the link to this app, which actually brings a lot of data, not only from the test sites in the project, but as well as from all the sea basins in Europe, across Europe. So I can share the link.
Oh yes, please. Actually, I met one of your colleagues, and I already went through the webpage of MSP4Bio, that is our sister project, and I noticed that a couple of deliverables are really useful for us also to share. So yes, please, I think you can include in the chat the link so everyone else can actually have access. But yes, thank you.
And thank you very much for this really interesting presentation. I'm really impressed from all the results that you have achieved for 1 year. So it's complex work, it's very comprehensive, and congratulations for all the results achieved so far.
Thank you. And we hope that we can achieve more also with you and with other projects and people that want to involve with us. So it will be great because we can actually try to solve this issue together and not alone.
Yes.
So
thank you.
I'm going back to.
Can I?
Yeah, please, because there is no button.
Because you were showing the slide, and I immediately remember one more question. It was about this carbon.
Okay, I'm going back.
This graph, which shows this highest values for muddy sediments.
Yeah. Here. Oh wait, because it's long. This one.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So this is sandy mud and mixed sand. Yeah, that's the biggest value, or that's the biggest uncertainty. These colors, I couldn't.
No, the colors is just the different category that the UC map classification. We use the UC map classification. And for example, these 4 are the one that UNIS classify as a biogenic habitat. But yes, this is the amount of observation, and the amount of here is indicated the observation, the number of observation, and here the range of organic carbon, the average of percentage of organic carbon. So we could see, for example, the line is the medium. I don't know if I can see. Here, the medium. So this is number of observation. This is the median, and this is the entire range of the data. In this case, percentage. So the high level medium we could find here in the course, and in the Sadi Med or Muddy Sand, they use this term. And here, but then also we have a lot of observation with NA, so we have to discover which type of sediment are there, and because these data come from contributors, we can actually go back to them and ask if they have additional data information.
Yeah, because I was looking, there is this second is sandy mud and mixed sand, which is pretty small values. And then if I look at the column which you indicated 77, which we illustrated sandy mud and mixed muddy sand, and it's very big, and that's for me exactly showed why is such a big difference in these values, because it looks like these sediments are pretty similar. So, but
the one things that we also discuss with our work, because Uni's map, I mean, this classification has been done by Agency C in the EMONET, that is collaborating with EMONET, and they are part of our project. So we asked them, and they use it because we thought that it was practically the same. As a biologist, I have to admit that for me it was practically the same, but actually they use a different folk system, parameter system, so they define a different. What we can do and what we will do in the next analysis is try to understand try to highlight the differences between these two sediments that are two different classes of sediment categories, and try to understand why here that we look similar, they actually have a different organic carbon percentage. This is an in-depth analysis that we want to do. Also, for example, see the seagrass, because see the seagrass species combined with this sediment, and see if the seagrass species or the salt marsh actually highly contribute to the high amount of organic carbon. We ran already this analysis. I didn't show you here, but yes, it seems that salt marsh and seagrass beds are the ones that actually have a very high organic carbon, but we didn't make the cross analysis between these two classifications, one with the seabeds, sediment classification, and one with the species. So we want to run this one first and then show you the data. But yeah, you are right. From my perspective, that they were the same class. And it was curious to see the value, how different.
I can ask more questions, but maybe others colleagues can ask, because presentation was really very interesting for me. Yeah, got some questions, but maybe others can ask.
Any other question? No? Otherwise, we can, if we don't have specific question about this, the topic, the presentation, we can go directly to this, our key point discussion. And then we can come up back to the question of the presentation if you need. But so based on our presentation, based on this discussion, quick discussion that we had, do you think that could be useful to have this kind of data, even with all these uncertainty and problematic? But do you think that this result can be used also for behind the designation of MPA? So, for example, extending the network of existing MPA, because we talked, thanks to Christina's comment and question, we see that, yes, we can use part of the data, but then when you go for national MSP, for example, that is becoming a little bit complex because of the coarse resolution. While, for example, regional MSP, yes. And from the transboundary, we could understand, thanks to Margarita's comment, that actually joint work can help between what we provide and what they provide during their project. So any other comment or observation, idea about how this result can be used from your perspective? For example, I don't know, do you think that working with the blue carbon data, because working with biodiversity, okay, it's fine, we already say, but adding the blue carbon layer to this prioritization, do you think will be a useful data, for example, for your region, for strengthening the existing MPA or extending the network? Or do you think it's not an added value for you, for your case? Yeah. Jump in, because we don't have the button. just jump in.
Okay, so for the German case, I think, as far as I understood, you're considering salt marshes and seagrass meadows, which would be relevant for the North Sea. And it's a special case that in the German national waters, these areas are mostly protected already. So that's already good. What would be an added value is if other blue carbon habitats could be included, and there's a project in Germany running or doing analysis of carbon storage potential in muddy sediments, which you might know. And of course, muddy sediments are a bit more widespread and further offshore than the coastal seagrass meadows. So that would be an interesting component.
Okay, yeah, that's why we decided, even if there was a conflict at the beginning between UNI's classification, what was biogenic for UNIC and what wasn't for us, we decided that it's extremely important for the marine sediment to keep also the non-biogenic habitat because of what you've been saying. So but we also want to be really, really clear when we define what is biogenic for us, when we say MPA Europe biogenic habitat. So we decided to actually run in parallel these two analyses and presently separating what is marine sediment, for example, as the graph that I present, and then what is like the biogenic habitat with the more with the species involved. But then we should a certain point to cross, because actually could be interesting to see if there is any importance there. But yeah, you are right. We should also take care. We should also have this vision from the country perspective and the characteristic of each region, and what is important, not focus only on those that obviously. Thank you. Noted.
I can comment from Latvian perspective. So Germany can be very relaxed in terms of implementing biodiversity strategy in marine waters, because you have 50% of your marine waters are protected. Congratulations. In Latvia, it's only 15. So we are looking for additional 15. But this is based on different criteria. So taking habitats from Habitat Directive and species also from Habitat Directive and Bird Directive. So trying to use these criteria at the first look if for this, to reach 30%. And currently what I have seen, the first rough assessments indicated this could be sufficient just to use this criteria, which is like also for designation of Natura 2000 sites. So this is a kind of difference. But we will be more certain towards the end of next year. It can be that it's not sufficient to reach these targeted percentages. And then there is discussion about important habitats for fish species, for nursery areas, and also for nursery spawning areas. Mm-hmm. So based on these criteria, which is actually very nicely linked to concept of ecosystem services, where this maintaining of nursery habitats is also very important. This blue carbon would be very valuable when we discuss about climate policies, and selecting of new areas for wind park development. That, okay, we say this 30% of areas are valuable for based on habitats and birds directive, but we also need to look for achieving some objectives with regard to CO2 targets. And then this could be like an additional kind of policy support for reaching additional policy goals, which is related to carbon storage or climate neutrality and so on, which is also a new challenging topic for MSP, at least. In Latvia and also what I hear also in neighboring countries on Eastern Baltic.
Yeah, I actually, it's a good point yours, and I was thinking while you're commenting that do you think that would be, because all these species distribution model and habitat model will be available. So at a certain point, you will have actually is a link and you can access and you can download whatever you wish. And select the species of the habitats and then use those maps. But do you think that could be a case study, for example, if we will have a sort of a subset of our output, like focus on those specific directive, for example, species listed under habitats and birds directive, so species and habitats, sorry, listed there, using, for example, when we are going to propose the MPA, also say which criteria we have used and which kind of MPA, I mean the level of protection of the MPA. Do you think that this could be also an additional value, or a specific case study, for example?
I would say it's definitely a value. At least in countries, these are one or two institutes which are, I would say, making this prioritization of area based on this habitats and birds directive criteria. So it would be good to get alternative kind of, let's say, modeled results, which can be then used to discuss with policymakers and stakeholders. So it definitely would create discussion among stakeholders if we have several modeled results. Also used on the same criteria, it would be really beneficial if we can pick up one criteria like habitats directive plus birds directive plus carbon needs, or that it's like step by step what we can add, making like cake layers.
Yeah, okay. This one. Okay. Any other question or comments? Specific?
May I jump in?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, just to complement to all shared thoughts on the discussion points, I will talk from the perspective of entire MSP4Bio project that actually covers 5 European sea basins, north represented from Belgium part, 2 Atlantic test sites, as well as the entire Baltic, which is coordinated by HELCOM. Also Black Sea, which is a cross-border test site between Bulgaria and Romania, and Northwest Mediterranean. So what we have identified in MSP4Bio is that about the current status of MPA network across Europe is that actually there is a lack of operational management. So most of the MPAs actually lack effective management planning. So we also identified about the coherence between maritime spatial planning and marine protected areas management. So there is a lack of coherence between policies. So these are still quite separate processes. I mean that the marine special planning integrates all the existing marine protected areas so far, but actually most of the plans do not have the remit to designate and to define new protected areas or to extend existing ones, because this is in the remit of other authorities such as environmental ministries. So we are still lacking this policy coherence between two processes. Also, we have identified that regarding how the most of the issues actually have been integrated in maritime special plans in Europe. We have identified that climate change issues, for example, have been generally reflected in the plans. I mean, there is not so much detailed analysis about the climate change refuge and these options for adaptation and so on. So definitely, I said this also at the workshop last summer for the Black Sea Basin, that we find actually the climate change modeling in particular useful for integration in maritime special planning, as well as blue carbon data and analysis will be in particular useful for future integration in the marine special planning. Ecological connectivity is also generally addressed in the maritime special plans, as well as what we have identified. There is still lack of precise scientific special information about the future designation of marine protected areas, something that actually MPA Europe project offers currently, and also that mostly ecological criteria have been used so far in designation of marine protected areas. So what we are managing and dealing now within the MSP for Bio project is exactly to not only to improve the ecological criteria for designation of marine protected areas, but also to improve the alignment with socioeconomic criteria, which is essential for the effective maritime special planning. So that's shortly on my intervention, how we can use the results of MPA Europe. And I think all the results are really important for the national, the transboundary, the regional maritime special planning, as well as for the extending the network of existing MPAs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, indeed, I take notes in the meantime because are important. But yes, we actually noticed even during this last year where we actually meet you all of you and all other stakeholders, that it's extremely important, the fact that we should bring these two communities, at least MPA, who designate MPA and who take care of the MSP, that actually we need to bring in the same room. Sometimes there is also an issue dictated by the legislation, because, for example, if you think about the pledge, the MPA pledge, so the country already, some country, not everybody, but some country in Europe already defined the MPA. So what we will do with this MPA Europe that is running and will finalize the result by April 2026. when I actually met, and I think it was a German colleague, actually, a very nice colleague from German, because they already have done everything, and they have a very small area, so compared to other regions. So it's really complicated also for them designate MPA and then have a MSP. And at a certain point, he told me, we cannot change our MPA because we already fight and discuss, and finally we had a consensus. So this is, and I say yes, of course. So he asked me how I can use your data, and I say, look, I'm not saying that you have to use your data for defining again the MPA, but our data will show you if your pledge or your plan or your defined MPA will be useful for future, because we will include not only the current status but the climate change. So this maybe will be useful in future, because all the directives they have in some moment there is a cycle where you can amend it. So based on this data, probably you can't use it today, but you could be useful in future. And this is something that happens not just to German. I mean, I know other country that already submit their plan, like Spain, for example, they already submit. And what we will do if we will have access to this spatial layer is to overlap our result with their pledge and see if there is any mismatch. But I mean, it's just an informative. It's not judging, or because obviously it's something that has been decided politically. But I don't know what you think.
I think for Germany, it's not only pledges; it's already legally established areas.
Yeah, indeed.
Can comment. It's Sweden has been and Denmark from Baltic Sea regions. They have made pledge. Others haven't done yet and are not in hurry. So I would say here's the contributions would be very valuable. But Germany is front runner. They have already established areas.
Yeah, done everything already. Yeah, Frank, yeah, you can jump in.
Maybe they are legally established but not well managed. That's a different story. Yeah.
That is exactly the point. No, that it's one step already that you have a legally designated area, but if it doesn't manage anything, then it doesn't help. And and the aspect that my other German colleague was pointing out, that it's indeed very difficult that the political discussion on where to place MPAs is in the long run a political decision. No, it's got a scientific basis, but then the decision is political, and at least in Germany that is very complicated, and once you have something you don't want to touch it again. But there's also many other questions that don't directly relate to marine spatial planning, and that could use the products that you're producing. So, and in general, I would say it's always helpful if there is a broader scientific database on showing, for example, relevant areas, because the space is not getting any more in the seas. It'll get more crowded and crowded, and I think that's probably going to be the same for all countries. So we will have these discussions for many years to come.
Yeah, indeed. I can see our seas completely full of activities. And one example, is the wind farm, and this is another how can I say, another big plan at the European level, and our analysis can probably help a little bit some country or some companies that really want to be sustainable, try to understand where they can actually place, also based obviously on the wind direction, not only just based on the biodiversity, but there are a lot of things going on, and you are right. It's not just in terms of MPA or MSP, but it also goes beyond other. And it's useful to have these data that even if the data that we provide can be updated in future. Let's see who is going to update.
And I think you just touched on an important point, that we need to keep updating this information. Because we are in such dynamic moment for ecosystems that changing very fastly, and so it's important that the countries update. And of course, it's a political act of establishing MPAs, and it's hard to think on a future where we can have dynamic MPAs. But maybe we will need something like that, because maybe the ecosystems will change too much.
Yeah, but yeah, it's also, I found that's why I found interesting to have this win-win approach and different case study, a different region, because actually each region, they have their own characteristic behind the environmental, but they run in a different way. Their country run in a different way. I mean, I've been working with the other type of data and other directives, and I could see that North and South has differences. Baltic is different from the Black Sea from Mediterranean Sea, and the Northeast Atlantic, ELCOM, OSPAR, UNEMAP, the conventional Black Sea Convention. So, I mean, this is critical. So even if our study area is the pan-European, because try to cover the entire seas in the continent, around the European continent, but then it's extremely important to rerun the analysis at this different level because of this. So, but yeah, keep updating is extremely important. Keep updating the data is extremely important. Any other observation? No? Okay, so I want to highlight regarding the co-identify use of the case study. This is not the workshop where we have to identify the case study. So just keep in mind what we have discussed, what we presented, what I presented, and just metabolize the information and keep just watching our website and see our next delivery, or keep in touch directly with us. That is easy because we are you can contact us directly by email, and we can actually think about in the next months what can be done in your region. That can be different type of study, even beyond the MSP. I mean, if this will be a useful information. So one thing, as I say, sorry, one thing that I want to say to you is that after this, that is extremely important. After this workshop, we will write a report, a very short report, like 5 pages report. Try to summarize and try to wrap up the key message and all the comment and observation that you have been saying so far, also because we have the recording so and the chats and our notes, so we will. But even though after the first draft will be sent to you and to other stakeholders, and you will have the opportunity to just correct the observation if we report it in a wrong way or incomplete, and then add other information if you want. So you will have this opportunity to write down, and then once it's ready, we will compile all these comments and changes, and then we will actually have this report available also will be, and much important, the most important thing, this report will also be the starting point for the policy brief that we will produce at the end of the project. So this is a message that I want to deliver very clear. Anna, yeah.
Maybe we can add that the report will be on the online section of the workshop, and also include the result from the in-presence workshop that we are now having in Helsinki. So
yeah,
you
great.
will see also what the stakeholder in presence have discussed.
Yeah, indeed, is a combined version of the entire workshop of Protect Baltic, so in person plus online. So yes, you're right. Good point. Thanks, Anna. So I can stop sharing, I think. Stop sharing. I don't know if I can.
She disappeared.
Yes, I think she stopped sharing
Yes.
and closed the call.
Yes, the system is a little bit tricky.
Yeah, it was tricky because there was that I knew that I could do something wrong. Yeah, I stopped sharing the wrong button, the red one. That is the wrong button. So we can take a picture of us.
Yeah.
And then we see if there is any other comments, and then we can conclude. So again, thank you very much. It was extremely nice conversation with you. I love it, and I hope that we can keep in touch in the next months and years and work together. So thank you for all your comments and observation and question. Really useful. So big smile because we are just small. So another picture.
Yes, just to be sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then please, if you want to keep in contact with us, just drop an email. We are here. And if you have any doubts or any further question, curiosity, happy to answer, to even via email or a doc meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other observation you want to say last? No?
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
We will need.
Okay. Thank you very much. Really, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.